Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have a single story for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Before we start that, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and you can always change your mind later. Alright, on to the story. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Tosspot99. Are you sure you want to do this by the book? Many moons ago, I spent my youth in the army. I worked in comms and spent some excellent years doing dumb crap with some of the best guys and girls you could ever meet. One of those years of my misspent youth, I was deployed to a hot and sandy location. This length of deployment was unusual for me, as most deployments in the British Army are 6 months. The extra time was due to us being one of the first units deployed, and after supporting the initial deployment, they requested volunteers to remain and support and train some of the relieving units and newly deployed logistics headquarters. At this stage of my career, I had been unlucky enough to jump from deployment to deployment, and I was loving the extra money that gave me, so I happily volunteered to stay. I was tasked with supporting one of the logistics HQs. I'd run that detachment earlier in the deployment and was happy to return, as it was far away from the main HQ, and all the bored adults and seniors that the HQ brings. Think sweeping the desert, that kind of thing. Our little detachment was an oasis in a sea of BS. It was just 6 guys and girls with me as the detachment commander. I was a corporal at the time. The isolated nature of our detachment meant that anyone sent there had to be able to operate independently, be very adaptable and open to improvise to support where required. Our main unit also liked to send us their troublemakers, but due to the nature of the detachment, they could only send us people who could do their role also. So I ended up with all the best and most interesting scum of my unit, and it was amazing. For any Yanks reading, it would have been E4 Mafia Paradise. Within 4 weeks, we had a patio and rock garden set up. We had a barbecue pit, shower area, gym. We'd sorted a deal with the local civilian contractors for us to receive beer in exchange for our help in vehicle and generator servicing. The best part was, due to us being a comms detachment, it was restricted entry to our area, so we were free from any surprise visits. Now that I've set out the backstory, I'll get on to the Malicious Compliance. The HQ we were supporting was regularly rotating its senior, non-commissioned officers, and officers from the deployment. They'd do the minimum time to qualify for a medal, and they'd get replaced with someone new. It was a crappy practice that eventually got shut down, but not till much later deployments. We were fairly used to this by now, and the only overhead we had was creating new accounts for the seniors. The guys who actually did the work, my peer group in the HQ, stayed the same mostly. This latest rotation saw the old regimental quartermaster sergeant being replaced by a new, promoted quartermaster sergeant. This new guy was a prick, full of his own self-importance, hated that we had a little island of BS-free tranquility within his eyesight. I'd see him pacing outside our fence line when he first arrived, unable to comprehend that he wasn't allowed to just walk in. By this point, I had been in this location for about 6 months, and I was thoroughly past the point of giving any Fs. The RQMS hated that he had to deal with me, a lowly full screw, as OC of the detachment, and myself and crew of reprobates was out of his chain of command. One day, he absolutely lost his crap because we were barbecuing half a goat and had invited a few of his guys to join us after work for some beers and delicious goat wraps. By this stage, we'd used Hessian to fence off our barbecue and bar area so that we could obscure it from prying eyes. He went off to get some of his unit's regimental police, RPs. These are not real military police, just jobsworths with no real job in a unit, to come and shut us down. I told them to jog on. They weren't getting in my detachment, and I don't care who sent them. Apparently the next day, he was apoplectic. The guys who worked with him warned us he was determined to bring my detachment to heel. His solution was removing our welfare package that we were issued through his department as a favor from his guys for some services we were providing. It consisted of a small fridge, TV, and British Forces Broadcasting Service TV decoder. The conversation went roughly as thus. Corporal Tosspot, it appears that there's been a paperwork error and you've been given one of my welfare packages by mistake. Okay, sir, I'd be happy to fill that in. Shall I drop by your office? You can drop by my office and bring the package, but you won't be filling in any paperwork, Corporal. You may have wrangled the last RQ, but as far as I'm concerned, you lot can do one if you think you're getting that welfare package back off me. And if there's anything else that I find that isn't 100% correct paperwork-wise, then I'll be shutting that right down. You may not be mine, and I may not be able to enter your little compound, but I'm going to have you, son. Every resup demand, every transport request better be completed correctly. I'm gonna make your lives hell with paperwork and admin. Cue Malicious Compliance. I'm sorry to hear that, sir. I'm sorry you feel the service that we provide isn't good enough. The old RQMS was very happy with services that he was getting from us and sent over the spare welfare package as a thank you. Are you sure that it's paperwork that's the issue here? Are you not happy with phones and the internet? Corporal, I have no complaints regarding the comms. You just need to complete the correct paperwork and have it authorized by me. At this point, it is clear that he is never going to authorize the return of the welfare package and is very smug about it. Okay, sir, you're of course correct. Paperwork is essential. Are you giving me attitude, Corporal? No, not at all, sir. Just agreeing with you. To be clear, you are happy with everything else we provide to the HQ. You just want me to complete the correct paperwork? That's correct, Corporal. No problem, sir. Happy to oblige. I delivered the welfare package back to his stores. His guys were very apologetic. I told them not to worry. You see, the welfare package was a thank you for all the extra phone lines and terminals that we'd provided for the previous RQMSs. This expanded his and his unit's working capacity. Most importantly, I had run phone line to the sleeping areas so that him and his lads could call home without using their limited welfare phone cards. I'd also laid some precious unfiltered internet lines too. Internet to deployed units is very rare, and unfiltered internet is almost unheard of for British units. What I was providing was immense value to lonely squatties, and it was also without paperwork. When I got back to my detachment, I flicked a couple of switches, turning off all the paperworkless connections. I waited for the inevitable. It didn't take long. The first visitor was one of the privates letting us know he'd been cut off mid-call back home. I apologized and explained what was going on with the RQMS. He understood, not happy about it, but understood. He went off muttering about throbbers who can't leave well enough alone. The next was one of the RQMS's full screws who I have a lot of time for. She came round and asked what was going on with the comms. She was in the office when I had the conversation with the RQMS earlier. We had a bit of a chat about what a belter he is, and then she asked what was going on. I explained that as per the RQMS's request, we are following his example and doing things by the book, and I've turned off all services without the correct paperwork. She looked at me knowingly. So what does that mean? She asked. I explained that the only services that I had been ordered to provide were for the HQ. The rest would have to request them through me and be approved by a division HQ as per orders. I handed her a copy of the request forms to be completed in triplicate as I didn't have a photocopier and they couldn't send it to me by email as I'd just turned their kid off. She had a bit of a chuckle and went back to her boss, paperwork in hand. You see, the only orders I had were for the 6 lines and terminal in the HQ. The 30 odd lines I'd laid extra were essentially me being a good bloke and supporting the mission and departments as they grew around the HQ. It was initiative and adaptability on my part. These were all now off, and I had a steady stream of visitors throughout the day wanting to know what was going on. I directed them all to the RQMS who had the request forms. My last visitor was the operations captain. He was a top bloke, a late entry officer, had gone through the ranks from private to regimental sergeant major, and was now commissioned as an officer, who had spent more than a few nights in our compound with a beer and talking crap with us. He was one of the very first recipients of a private line and internet. He asked me what was going on. He'd been round the houses, so he knew there were shenanigans afoot. I told him the situation. His face dropped. "Leave it with me," is all that he said, and off he went. 30 minutes later, the RQMS was back at the entrance to my compound with the welfare package. The ops captain was with him, looming over him as only an RSM, or former RSM in this case, can. "Hello sir, how can I help?" "Hello Corporal, there seems to have been an error, and we found your paperwork for the welfare package, so I'm returning it with my apologies." "No need to apologize sir, easy mistake to make. So, are we good? And the other paperwork moving forward?" "There's no need for all that." Looking over his shoulder at the ops captain, "We are, after all, on the same team." "We are indeed, sir." I looked over my shoulder and gave one of my guys a nod. "I think you'll find everything is now back to as it was." "Excellent, thank you very much, Corporal." And off he went. The ops captain stared daggers at him as he left. He just gave me a nod and confirmed that drinks were still on for the next day and toddled off back to his pit. I was never bothered by the RQMS again. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Responsible and 7361. It says, "As a former supply guy, anything IT and comms needed, they got. Oddly, we always had great IT connections and service. Don't piss off medical, don't piss off supply. Don't piss off comms and IT." The next commenter down below called Professor Tech Support said, "General life lesson, do not ever piss off the people who provide you with the necessities. Only piss off the people who provide you with comforts if you're willing to live without them." I would add one more thing onto that last comment. I would make sure that your bosses are willing to live without them too. Because as we saw in this story, if the bosses aren't willing to live without those creature comforts that they're used to, it will come down on you. Did you know every KCC video is also produced in podcast form? You can search for Karma Comment Chameleon on every major podcasting platform. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next one.